What's up, guys? What day one of getting sober from cocaine was like. Cocaine addiction was one of the hardest addictions for me to beat. It was the one that it played hand in hand with my ADHD, so stimulants affected me a lot differently. Wanted to share with you what it was like because it was a hard one. Especially when you go to some of the different people and you let them know, hey, I'm addicted to coke, and they're like, oh, well, that's not that bad. You know, I was addicted to heroin, or I was addicted to opiates, or I was addicted to benzos. Believe me, coke withdrawals and coke addiction is a pain. It's a nightmare, and you know what? I want to share with you about it so you don't feel so alone. If you're new to my channel, hit that like and subscribe button down there. Click the little bell if you're new to my channel. My name is Eric. I'm diagnosed with ADHD, PTSD, GAD, and MDD. Lost a wife and a father to suicide. I'm a recovering cocaine alcoholic addict. Day one of coke sobriety, I didn't want to really get sober from coke. I was more apt and more desired to get sober from alcohol than I was from coke. Because the way that cocaine made me feel is it made me feel like I was invincible. It felt like it calmed me down. It was one of those drugs that I never really felt like it was a bad drug in a sense, just because it wasn't heroin, it wasn't opiates, it wasn't anything of that sort. And I could function really well doing it, and yet it gave me a lot of energy and it calmed my brain down. So when it came to actually getting sober from cocaine, I truly enjoyed everything about it. I missed instantly the way that it felt going down my nose, how it felt when my teeth got a little numb and my jaw clenched up, and I knew that it was hitting my system. And it made me feel empowered by the day. And when I had that taken away from me, there was so much mental withdrawal from it, of this desire to try and get it back. I went to AA, I went to NA, and I'm still active in those programs. And it was hard because I didn't think a lot of people actually took it serious. They were like, oh, well, you're addicted to cocaine. You know, I don't really think you can get addicted to coke. Well, I was doing 1 to 2 8-balls a day. I mean, that's 3.5 grams to almost 8 grams of coke a day. And I don't know how I'm still here or how I can even use my nose. But the way that it made me feel was something that was so embedded in my brain and just ingrained in my brain that my body wanted it that way. And it wasn't, I didn't feel any of the like physical detox. Like when I was going through the alcohol withdrawals, I had the cold sweats, the restless legs, my stomach was all jacked up. There's a lot that went with alcohol withdrawal, but cocaine withdrawal was the hardest for me mentally, because it was like, you know what, I could just do a quick little bump and everything's going to be all better. And it was like my go-to fix-it-all patch on life, and it was now yanked from me. And so trying to cope with that and find different ways to cope with it was really difficult to do, because I never pictured it as a bad drug. I never really heard of people ODing on cocaine. So I was like, so why is this drug so bad? And the problem with cocaine is even in the mixture process, it's cut with so many different things out there. A lot of times, especially in California, it's been cut with meth. So you're not even sure what you're necessarily are you getting in the cocaine. And you're putting this in your system. And people do look at you differently when you're like trying to explain to them that you're a coke addict, because a lot of people do brush it off. And when they brush it off, it makes that mental detox even harder, because you're like, well, maybe it wasn't all that bad. You know, look at all the people that have done coke maybe I can just quit this whenever. And it was really hard for me to admit that this was my drug of choice. I mean, my drug of choice was alcohol and cocaine. I would do so much cocaine to the point that my whole body would be numb. I wouldn't function. Hypersexuality would kick in, and there's no part of my body that was working the way that it should have worked. But trying to get the understanding from others, I felt very isolated and very alone, because I felt like nobody understood and no one took it seriously, even though I was reaching out and asking for help with it. The one thing that helped me through a lot of it is that I did get back onto my ADHD meds and use it as regulated. And I never abused my ADHD meds. I mean, yes, Adderall is a stimulant. I take 10 milligrams in the morning between 7:30 and 8 o'clock, and then I take another 10 milligrams between 12:30 and 1. But when it came to coke, it was one of those that everybody just was like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. And when you're telling somebody that it's not that big of a deal, but yet this is what they're craving, it fucks with our heads. It really messes this up, because you're like, okay, well, maybe I can just do a little bit of it, and maybe I can get it back under control. And everybody says it's not as bad as what I think maybe it is. And I blew just tons of money on this drug because of how badly my urges were for it. That I was that person that if I did a line, I had to keep chasing that high. I had to keep chasing that high. And so I just keep doing it. I just keep doing it. I just keep doing it until it was all gone. I mean, I could never, ever, ever have cocaine and have it not be gone, because that's how my brain was programmed. That's how I am. And that's how bad the cocaine addiction was. And so if you know anybody out there that's struggling with cocaine addiction, the biggest thing that I have to say is you can't downplay it. You can't be like, oh, well, it's cocaine. You know what? It's not that bad. You'll get over it. Just work through it. No. And even when you go to NA, I'm sorry, but there are a lot of different things, groups out there even that look at you a little differently when you're like, hey, this is my drug of choice. And everyone's like, well, I was doing heroin. And it's like, well, I was doing coke. You know what? It's not a competition. It's a fucking addiction. And that is a bit of a challenge out there. My first day of it though, I mean, I remember just sitting all day long, just wanting it. And my like go-to was just smoking a bunch of cigarettes. And I remember like my nose, because I would be thinking of it so hard, my nose would get like liquidy and my sinuses would kind of break up, and I'd be the whole time just like, okay, hey, I could just do a little bit of it and it'll help me through today. I had that fake senses that I could taste it. Throughout the whole day, I couldn't get the images out of my head of just doing it and how it made me feel and how this would make me feel better of what I was going through if I just did a little bit. And they're really hard urges to resist. I had to actually keep in a lot of conversation. I was very afraid even to tell people about my cocaine addiction because of how people looked at it. I was very, very open and willing to talk about my alcohol addiction, but my cocaine addiction, it was like, it always got downplayed by everybody. And it made me feel horrible about myself because I'm like, how am I the only one that's addicted to this? How am I the only one that's going through this? And I mean, I had dreams, vivid dreams of constantly doing coke. I would wake up and my nose would be clogged, and I'd be like, man, was that dream true? I would wake up and I'd just be kind of shaking, or I'd just look at anything that was kind of powdered, and it would instantly bring me back to like, man, I could just do a line, and everything would be all right. That's how real that addiction is, and I don't think a lot of people realize it. That it was almost this massive fascination of putting shit up my nose and how it made me feel. Day one of coke withdrawal was horrible. I mean, there wasn't the physical detox from it or the physical withdrawals from it. It was all mental, and I just wanted my brain to like slow back down. I wanted to feel that invincible, and I just wanted my jaw just to clench up, and I would even do that like without doing the coke, and just, you know, how you feel your jaw tightening up and you're rubbing your gums because your teeth are numb and your gums are numb. It was hard, and luckily finding a good support system, people to talk through with it, made it a hell of a lot easier, because without support and people that did understand that yes, you can be addicted to coke, I don't know if I would have made it through, because that's how strong the drug addiction was for me to it. It was hard. I mean, I would eat the paper after the coke that I'd have my 8 balls put in, because I didn't want it put into plastic or anything, because I had to get every just minuscule just pellet into my fucking body, is how bad my addiction was for it. So I mean, my heart goes out to you, and I get the struggle. NA is a good support system. There is also Cocaine Anonymous. Just reaching out for help and letting people know what you're struggling with is everything, and know that you do matter. Know that what you're going through does get better. And it took about a week, 2 weeks for that hardcore just withdrawals in my head to go away. And I still have the withdrawals, and I still have the images in my head, and it's still a fight. So it's one of those that is a daily battle, and it's one day at a time. Hit that like and subscribe button. I'm diagnosed with ADHD, PTSD, GAD, and MDD. I share a ton about addiction also because I am a recovering addict. If you click the description box, I have links to all my different social medias. I have links to the mental health Discord communities that I've created for free peer-to-peer support. Even have links down below to things on Amazon like fidget cubes, fidget spinners, things that I use to help me through with my anxiety and with my depression. Even have a link down below to BetterHelp, because it's trial and error to find out what works for you. And it comes down to you are the most important person in the world. And therapy does help. Even when it comes to drug addiction and drug withdrawal, therapy can help you through this to help get you an understanding and get you the right help, and even medication if needed, to make it easier for you, because you don't have to take this battle on alone. So just remember that you matter, and you know what, together we got this.